Cynthia said, I really do appreciate the opportunity to be here today. When I worked as chairman of the Pardon and Parole Board and later as director, we had discussions about how do we, Oklahoma was one of the few states where our Pardon and Parole Board was subject to open meetings. And so we were used to having the press there. And we began to try to figure out how can we use technology. Can we do video conferencing? Can we do some sites so that we're not always having to transport inmates from every prison facility every month to whatever the central location is? You know, we talked about it then. We did a pilot project while I was director of the Pardon and Parole Board, and now they do that. We saw those government, state agencies trying to use technology to make their jobs easier, trying to figure out how to make it more efficient. Now the tools are out there to make government more open or make it easier for the public, for the constituency that we really work for. So we've moved from how do we use less paper, how do we handle our information better, to how do we give information to the people who put us in office and whose dollars we're spending. And I think that's what your conference is about, and I think that's what you all are about, in trying to figure out how do we make our lives, the public's lives, more open, the government lives more open, and what we do so that those decisions are available, how we spend money is available, and I'm all over that. I think that's what we need to be doing. Transparency has always been something that's been pretty important to me, and we've had the opportunity through the years I was in the legislature to try to support and promote that. I wasn't real big on, I mean, there are times we have to have negotiations, but you know what? Anytime we ever did anything on my committees that we thought were important, we did it open. And we let people know about it, so if they had an opportunity to come, they could be there. They could ask questions and challenge us later if they thought we hadn't done it right or didn't have the right information. I believe that allows us to be more accessible to the public. It's their dollars we're spending to build these systems. It's their dollars we're spending on programs and services, and they have a right to know. And unfortunately, the way that the legislature works right now, the way that the budget system works right now, very few people in the legislature have an idea of what's going on. It's just the way the system has been, and it's the way it continues to be. So anything that we can do to help improve the public's knowledge of the processes of the legislature or other agencies, of how money is being spent, then that's a good thing. Because when legislators are unable to go back home and explain to their constituents how dollars are being spent, then it causes distrust in how money is spent. I've seen that over and over again, and I'm absolutely convinced that until the public has confidence in how we spend money, then we cannot expect them to support other changes. You know, we've come a long way in putting legislative sessions on the internet, streaming live. First it was audio, it's moving to video. I think the Senate got both done first. The House has the video with the audio now. It has been interesting. I was in the legislature, I was a state representative when that started, and I began to see, I began to see conduct change in the House chamber, but it would probably be fairer to say I saw debate change in how people wanted to talk, and sometimes just knowing that they were going to be heard, they got a little more animated and talked a little more often than perhaps they used to. That's okay. That's the nature of the game. But there are so many other aspects of what we do in the legislature that really are not open, that are not available. How money is spent internally. The same rules and regulations that apply to state agencies don't apply to the legislature, House or Senate. And openness in government and accessibility of that information, I think, cuts all across the board. No one should be exempt from that. But when you have that kind of accessibility and you have the opportunity to put information out there in front of the public, it carries a great deal of responsibility. Government term for that, or elected officials term for that, is accountability. And we have to be responsible with how we handle that information. We have to be responsible in the information that is put out there, and I believe that it holds the public officials more accountable for how they act. When I was a judge, every decision we made was, of course, public record. When I was with the Pardon and Parole Board, every vote we took was public record. And if I couldn't explain my vote, then I probably shouldn't have made it. I think the same thing is true with how we spend our money. If we cannot explain why we did certain action, then we need to rethink it. And a lot of times it may be obvious for the person who is the decision maker or who is the appropriator, but until someone else asks a question, we may have missed something totally. And I think that's the public's right to know. So I hope that as you all continue through this process, that you will help us figure out ways to be more transparent, to be more accessible, and also then hold our feet to the fire so that we become more accountable for our actions that we take. It does have an economic impact, and it can be a significant opportunity for the state of Oklahoma. From 1995 to 2002, I served on a board of regents for a small 2-year private women's college in Missouri. And at that point in time, this small town, it was about 60 miles north of Joplin, this small community was on US 70, I think, whatever come from Kansas City down to Joplin. And I would listen to the people in that town talk about how fortunate they were to be right there. Now, you remember, this is 15 years ago, some of that discussion's going on. But there was discussion at that time that if they could lay fiber optic from Joplin to St. Louis, from St. Louis to Kansas City, and Kansas City down to Joplin, they would create a triangle that would create a synergy for development that meant you could have companies living along those areas, people living along those areas and work around the world. And the little community where the college was that I worked with started building cottages, started trying to build what I would now call a Wi-Fi community, but started trying to build a community that they could recruit individual entrepreneurs to come, trying to guarantee them that they would have access to the technology that would let them reach around the world to be able to sell their goods or programs or whatever it was they were doing. I didn't hear that kind of conversation in Oklahoma until recently. Now technology's improved, but that kind of idea making, that kind of foresight, that kind of vision is what we in the state have an opportunity to do. And when times are tough, as our economy is right now, it is our time to try to think down the road about what we want Oklahoma to look like, not tomorrow, not 4 years from now, but 10, 15, and 20 years from now. So when we're making budget decisions at the state capitol, we need to be making sure that while that we don't erode the infrastructure, but that we build an infrastructure. And that's more than just roads and bridges. It is the technology infrastructure that you guys navigate way better than I do. But I navigated enough to know it is essential if Oklahoma wants to compete, not with other states, but if we want to compete with keeping our kids here when they grow up and have an opportunity to find jobs of their own, so that we can compete globally. We have to do that. We have to make that investment. And so what I would say to you is that I started thinking, because I have been involved in, since I was elected Lieutenant Governor, with the Oklahoma Creativity Project. And it has a lot of ideas and understands that creativity is about more than arts and music in our schools, but it is about that as well. It's about other things that can be done. It's about the entrepreneurs that create new kind of prosthetics that are available, and it's about new kinds of ways of doing engineering and lots of different things. And I thought about how creativity has brought us every major advancement that we've had in our world and certainly in our country. And think about it. Creativity helped create a box called television. Creativity helped create a box called a telephone. Creativity helped create a box called a desktop computer. Creativity helped create a box called a cell phone or an iPhone or a smartphone or whatever your communication device is right now. But what you all have the opportunity to do is to take creativity outside the box. And that's what we need in government. We need that kind of creativity that goes outside the box. And in fact, I would say, to the extent that you help recognize that there is no box. There is no box. There is no limit to what we can do. There's no limit to how we should think. There's no limit to what we can envision if the right people help us put it together in the right way. So I hope that that's what Gov2.0 will do for us. And I look forward to being able to be your partner and help you implement the great ideas that you all bring to us. Thank you all very much for the chance to be here today.